Welcome, dear listeners, to Dost Linger of Fortnite, the play to be pouring forth truth, tea, and turpentine upon the cracked wooden table of daily Elizabethan life. I be thy host of jesters, Haley, coming to thee live from rat-infested cellars with fair acoustics.
And I'm Gonk, Haley's roommate, co-host, and unpaid chore slave. Also, the rat bit me. Again.
That'd just be how they say hello in Vermin.
It said hello with its teeth, Haley. With teeth!
Today's episode shall tackle pressing matters of the realm, rent increases, political scandals, aggressive pigeons, and what precisely the king was doing with that goose. We also welcome thy weatherman, Daniel Morris.
Hail to thee! I bringeth news from the heavens and whispers from Parliament. Also, I brought my own share.
Why does it smell of rosemary and vengeance?
Royal secrets, Gonk. Royal secrets. Right then, gather round, ye pox-sprinkled peasants and noble folk with gout. 'Tis time for the Village Report, the part of the show where we peel back the curtains of ye local affairs and reveal what lies beneath: scandal, mud, and occasionally an angry swine.
Oh goody, nothing says quality broadcasting like livestock and innuendo.
Let us begin with the top news. The town square is currently closed due to an incident involving the mayor's horse, 2 buckets of pickled turnips, and a mime who refuses to break character.
Ah yes, Mime Gregory. He hath not spoken since the incident at the harvest fair. Legend saith he once screamed, but only internally.
Ay, the guards tried to interrogate him, but he just climbed an invisible rope and vanished forth into the fog. Frankly, I respect the commitment. Meanwhile, the bridge by Scabbin Lane is out again. They say it collapsed under the weight of gossip and unresolved father issues. Also, Father Thistlewaite of the Chapel of Slightly Burnt Offerings has been suspended from sermon duty. He accidentally set fire to the hymn book while attempting a dramatic flourish.
Again?
Yes, that makes thrice this month. Once more, and he'll be demoted to Village Whisperer.
I attended that sermon. I left with 3rd-degree theological burns.
Fear not, for Brother Tobias shall take over. His sermons are mostly mumbling and interpretive sneezing.
Ah, a classic minimalist. I weepeth for the art.
Let's not forget the new proclamation issued by the mayor. No sheep shall be permitted in the alehouse after midnight. Apparently there was an incident involving one extremely belligerent ewe, 3 broken stools, and an unpaid tab.
That sheep was a menace. It played darts with its face.
Truly, we live in lawless times.
On a related note, the alehouse has introduced a new drink, the Flaming Gut Spiller. Ingredients: stale mead, pickled plum brine, and a hint of desperation in a lit match. First sip's free, the second costs thy dignity.
I had one. I woke up inside a wagon under a nun.
You are welcome.
No, she was throwing things at me.
Still counts as fellowship.
In other domestic disasters, Mrs. Hogsby of Mud Blister Lane has reportedly built a moat around her cottage to keep out the invisible jesters she claims are stealing her pie crusts.
That woman once chased me with a ladle because I looked French.
You do give a faint aura of a croissant.
I toured her moat. It's less fortress and more puddle with ambitions. Speaking of ambitions, the apothecary has been selling what he calleth philosopher's rocks. They're just regular rocks, but he claims they contain wisdom if thou lickest them under a full moon.
I tried one. All I got was dysentery and a vision of my uncle doing the worm.
Truly a harrowing prophecy.
Let us not ignore the political scuffle twixt the Bakers' Guild and the Candlewrights. The bakers want longer working hours, the Candlewrights want less light. They say productivity is too visible.
I'm on Team Candle. If I can't see what I'm doing, I can pretend I'm doing it well.
Darkness hides many sins. I built an entire chicken coop by accident once. I thought I was making a bookshelf.
Let us end this segment with a public service declaration from the town council. If thy cow be found upon another man's stoop, it shall be considered trespass and subject to questioning by the watch.
Alright then, before we drown in deeper absurdity, any updates on ye lost and found?
Yes, found. 1 boot, the left one, filled with porridge. Lost. 1 husband, possibly related. Also, someone turned in a mysterious pouch labeled "Do not open unless thou seeketh eternal flatulence." We opened it. The prophecy was accurate. We had to cancel brunch.
Twice.
That concludes the Village Report. May thy gossip be juicy, thy paddocks be fresh, and thy public indecencies be minor enough to avoid the stocks. Ah, the time hath arrived for one of our most beloved segments, a moment wherein we hang the metaphor metaphorical torch, nay, the flaming pitchfork of complaint, to our own resident wailer, grumbler, and seasonal throat-clearing enthusiast, Gonka Jahari.
One of these days I shall file a formal grievance.
To whom? The Goat Union.
Don't joke. They hold more power than Parliament.
And now, dear listeners, brace thyself for the lament of a man burdened by unpaid rent, unfed pigeons, and an ever-wet left sock.
Alright, right, let's begin. Firstly, our dwelling. I hesitate to call it a home. Nay, it is a crypt with windows. The walls weep more than a freshly dumped madrigalist. There is moss growing on the inside, Haley. The inside! I caught it sipping on my soup.
Moss is high in iron.
Secondly, the floorboards creak in iambic pentameter. I cannot even stumble into the chamber pot without summoning an entire ghost chorus. I stepped on a loose plank last night and never cited half of Hamlet at me. Incorrectly, I might add.
That's not a flaw, that's culture.
Culture does not scream, to be or, my splinter!
Thou art welcome. I trained the floor myself. Ooh.
Then there's the infestation. Mice? Nay, that would be too merciful. We are plagued by theater students.
They're in rehearsals.
They're in my pantry. I reached for a turnip and found Ophelia monologuing to a parsnip.
That explains the eyeliner on the root vegetables.
And the smell! What is that smell, Haley?
It's artisanal musk.
It smells like goat tears and cheap loot varnish.
Very on trend for this season.
Next grievance, shared space. Haley, thou cannot keep using the hearth as thy experimental smoke chamber.
I was testing out herbal parchment for relaxation.
You ignited 3 prayer scrolls and a goose.
That goose was a known heretic.
And thee, Daniel, Sir Weatherboy.
Weatherman, a family name since 1197.
You cannot host clandestine political meetings in our cellar at midnight. The walls are thin. I now know more about dairy tariffs than any sane man should.
And yet thou remain ignorant of cheese-based influence in the House of Lords.
The Duke of Wensleydale tried to bribe me with the wedge of aged compromise.
Did it work?
A little, but that's not the point. And then, the wildlife. Haley, I must protest in the strongest terms. The goat stays outside.
His name is Archibald, and he pays rent.
He ate my tax forms and left excrement in the laundry tub. You call that a barter system?
He's very civic-minded.
I heard Archibald may run for council this spring. With any luck, he'll be smarter than half the fools in there.
Wonderful! A goat's in charge. What next? A ferret chancellor? A squirrel militia?
You jest, but the squirrels have been drilling.
I saw a tiny helmet. It was quite bedazzled.
And the final indignity. Last night, I am not making this up. I awoke to find Haley practicing interpretive lute beneath my bed.
You said you wanted ambiance.
I meant candles and quiet, not you half-naked whispering poetry at my floorboards like a lovesick badger.
It was a sonnet about dust bunnies.
And yet, despite all this madness, despite the sleepless nights, the mysterious fluids, the squirrel uprising on the balcony, I stay.
Because thou loveth us.
Because my mother won't take me back.
Close enough.
Prithee, good citizens and muddied peasants, ye with muddy boots and questionable roofing, lend thine ears, for 'tis time once more for weathereth and weareth, whereupon I, Sir Daniel Morris, second of my name, vanquisher of mildew, shall read the skies and whisper sweet nothings into your forecasts.
Just say it's going to rain, Sir Daniel.
Fine, there be rain, but not just any rain. Nay, this rain doth fall with the spite of an ex-lover who hath found you in the tavern with a barmaid named Glenda.
We all knew Glenda was trouble. She had 2 teeth and ambition.
Indeed, this week's weather shall be wetter than a fish's pocket. A torrential damp hath descended from the eastern hills, known locally as the drizzle of doom, and by scholars as Wednesday.
Did you just name a weather system?
It helps the peasants blame something specific when their turnips drown.
I blame Sir Daniel. It's simpler.
Furthermore, be advised, a warm front from the southern fens bringeth not just mist, but scandal. For 'tis whispered in every damp corners that the Duke of Girdleton was spotted sneaking into the royal pantry, clad only in his nightshirt and a cloak of plausible deniability.
I enter the pantry in less.
And you wonder why the oat flower's haunted.
But hark! The winds from the west smell of rebellion and wet dog. I fear the windmill uprising of Grumblethorpe hath begun anew. Pitchforks have been spotted spinning counterclockwise.
Which, as we all know, is a sign of moderate revolution with a chance of treason.
Correct. Those with thatched roofs should expect light hail, suspicious pigeons, and the occasional flaming potato lobbed by dissenting villagers.
Oh, I hate flaming potatoes. Burnt my eyebrows during last spring's Spud siege.
They've become more aerodynamic since then. The rebels have discovered trebuchets.
Ah, yes, the peasant's catapult. Humble, deadly, occasionally full of sheep.
Elsewhere, we're seeing scattered storms across the northern territories, especially over Tiddlewick upon Sprat, where it rained frogs last Tuesday. Clergy are divided on whether it be divine judgment or local frogs just getting very, very ambitious.
Either way, I'm not stepping in puddles. I've no desire to explain to my boots why they're ribbiting.
As for the southern coast, sunshine peeked through yesterday afternoon for exactly 12 minutes, until it saw its own shadow and promptly retreated. Locals rejoiced by briefly removing their cloaks and resuming their annual festival of slightly less miserable weather.
Isn't that the one with the cabbage juggling and regrettable poetry?
Correct. The cabbage juggler, Cedric, has been missing since mid-juggle. They believe he ascended, possibly just into a tree.
I liked Cedric. He never juggled near my face, unlike someone.
That was one time. I had just invented flaming onions.
Finally, for those curious about next week's forecast, we do expect an increase in atmospheric absurdity. Reports suggest a rogue thundercloud named Gavin hath begun taunting villagers in rhyme.
A cloud with bars? Impressive.
A, his latest verse. Drip, drip, drop, thy sots be soggy, thy chimney howls like hounds all foggy. Fear me not, I only soak, but jest thee not, lest thou lightning provoke.
You know what? That's better than most of the tavern bards.
At least Gavin doesn't ask for tips.
And lastly, in state-sponsored weather news, the King's Book of Extremely Revised Prayers, trademark, hath been leaked in the rain and is now entirely smudged. However, recovered fragments include: Blessed art those who pay their taxes, eventually. Deliver us from gout, or at least let it wait till the harvest. Lead us not into puddles, but if we must, let them be shallow.
I'd join that religion.
All this to say, skies are bleak, roads are muddy, and moods are damp. If thou must travel, travel light, and carry a duck for flotation and companionship.
That concludes Weatherth and Wereth, the only forecast delivered by a man in a velvet cape shouting at clouds.
Truly a service to us all.
Thank you, thank you. Remember, if thou art struck by lightning, do not hold it against me, legally.
And now, dear listeners, the moment thou hast all awaited with bated breath and questionable spelling. A time wherein we doth answer the cries, queries, and semi-legible complaints of our beloved audience. Welcome to Thine Questions Are Nonsense.
Or as I call it, asks 3 fools and gets 4 problems. The 4th being surprise spiritual enlightenment, or mild constipation. It varies.
A first scroll hails from Mildred of Mudbottom, who doth inquire. How doth one attract a suitor who hath teeth and also basic hygiene?
Ambitious. Why not throw in a working sense of humor and a full pair of shoes?
Basic hygiene. Mildred, you are essentially requesting a unicorn.
Advice? Wear a necklace of garlic. Not for scent, but to keep away the toothless. Also works on over-eager friars.
Or just embrace solitude, Mildred. I did. Now it's just me, my thoughts, and an emotionally unstable goat.
Involuntarily.
That's Archibald to you. You've just described marriage, Gonk. Next query from Derek of Dungberry. How might I get my neighbors to stop jousting in the alleyway behind mine home?
Encourage them. Bet on them. Then throw the match.
Buy a louder drum and beat it every time they lunge. Ruin thy rhythm. They'll stop, or one will impair the other. Either way, peace.
Alternatively, lure their horses away with sugar cubes. Replace them with sheep. I guarantee a more polite joust.
Or confuse them further by challenging the winner to a thumb war. No knight hath yet trained his thumbs.
Third letter comes from Agnes the Slightly Damp, who says, My husband hath taken to muttering poetry to a fish. Should I worry?
Depends. Is the fish responding?
If the fish answers in iambic pentameter, get a priest.
Agnes, darling, we say, let love bloom, even if it's with a trout. At least he's finally speaking to someone with gills instead of glances at the milkmaid.
Though if the fish starts sending him poetry, Run.
Now from Bartholomew, the perpetually injured. What be the safest job in the kingdom? Asking for mine limbs.
Court jester. You get hurt emotionally, not physically.
Unless you insult the queen's embroidery.
Then it's off with thy head and onto a tapestry.
Safest job? Perhaps professional listener. Just sit, nod, and don't sneeze near nobility.
Or become a weather prophet like me. They blame the clouds, not thee. Unless the cloud's named Gavin, and then you're doomed.
Ah, that one's sealed with jam. Bold move from Noreen of Netherwack. What's the proper etiquette if thou catchest fire at the banquet?
Smile, wave, and pretend it's a new dance. The flaming minstrel shuffle, I call it.
Or scream, I am the Phoenix reborn! And dive into the soup tureen.
But only if the soup is seasonal. Lentil for winter, goose broth for spring.
If it's custard, just accept thy fate.
Now little Giblet of West Sheshford asks, is it true if I eat a Newton on Wednesday, I will gain eternal knowledge?
Sadly, no, but you'll gain eternal regret, and possibly 6 eyes.
You know, I was once turned into a newt by a witch. Thankfully, I recovered.
Eat nothing that blinks in Latin, Giblet. That's the rule.
I once bit a toad that quoted Cicero. Still hear him in my dreams.
And finally, from Edgar the slightly too enthusiastic. Might I join thy troop? I do impressions of medieval spoons.
We already have one of those. It's called Gonk.
Unfair! I moved on to being a fork. It's a promotion.
Edgar, we admire thy ambition, but alas, our troop is currently full of discontent, mild fleas, and one unpaid debt to a duck. We shall keep thee in mind. And that concludes thine questions are a nonsense. Remember, dear listeners, if thou art confused, befuddled, or experiencing romantic disappointment with someone who owns a ferret, write to us.
Send questions by scroll, carrier pigeon, or shouting really loudly into a barrel and rolling it downhill toward a hut.
And if thy question involve curses, demons, or cousin marriages, address it specifically to Haley.
My hobbies are varied, as is my legal status. Welcome ye gatherers of forbidden knowledge and recreational paranoia. It is time once again for the game that hath scholars scratching their wigs and constables gritting their wooden teeth. Guess the law, or ye be outlawed.
The rules be simple. Haley recites a strange, suspicious, or downright stinky law. Gonk and I must determine whether 'tis real, or just another result of Haley licking historical documents.
Which she has done. I watched him. She said the Magna Carta tastes like old onions and regret.
It was accurate, historically and gastronomically. Now first law. Law the first. It is illegal to eat eels on a Tuesday within 5 miles of a church, unless thou art wearing green.
That one is real. Chapter 9, Fishmonger's Guild. I was fined for eating smoked eel and poosh.
That explains the angry bishop and the flung mackerel.
Correct, 'tis indeed real. Drafted after the Great Eel Uprising of 1382, which historians agree mostly involved confusion and slippery roads. Law the second. Any goat may become mayor, should it defeat the current mayor in a duel.
Obviously real. That's how Mayor Bucky took power in Upper Bleepwink. He won with a headbutt and a low tax promise.
Fake. Mayor Bucky cheated. He used a trebuchet.
Ah, trick question. 'Tis not a law, but 'tis a local tradition. Mayor Bucky's duel was never officially sanctioned. He just showed up with a scroll and a very persuasive bleat.
Still the best mayor we've ever had.
Law the third. One must not whistle after sundown in the presence of pickled vegetables.
Oh, that's real. Superstition from the vinegar courts of Norwich.
No way! Sounds like something Haley made up while drunk in a brine barrel.
Oh, you incorrect. 'Tis real, enacted briefly in 1471 due to a fear that whistling would awaken evil spirits sealed in fermented cabbage. Also, one baron's wife was startled to death by a gherkin.
It must have been one from that dastardly stork. They said that those are omens for unplanned offspring.
Ha! Law the fourth. It is treason to ride a cow backwards through a toll gate during leap year.
That must be real. Too specific to be false.
I think I did that once, but it was dark, and the cow was very persuasive.
False, but inspired by a real event. Sir Tombley Thistlewack, famous tax protest of 1492. He rode a cow backwards while reciting sonnets. They jailed him for the poetry.
Deserved, honestly.
Law the fifth. Any man may legally duel another man using only loaves of stale bread, provided both participants agree and a priest officiates.
Real. That's the Yeast Code of chivalry.
I hope it's real. I've got a baguette with a vengeance in its crust.
It was real, but only for a period of 6 months during the Rye Rebellion. It was later amended to allow pastries and spell-based weaponry. Law the 6th. Should one be found guilty of hoarding cheese during wartime, the punishment is to be tickled by town children until tears are shed.
That's not punishment, that's a summer festival.
That happened to me, and I wasn't even hoarding. I just forgot to label my Stilton.
True, enforced during the cheese crisis of 1314, a time of great hunger, war, and unregulated dairy smuggling.
I lost 2 uncles to that brie blockade.
Law the 7th. Thou must inform the village crier before changing thy hairstyle, lest thou bring confusion upon the townsfolk.
Sadly, that's real. Jeffrey changed his fringe, and I lost 3 days trying to find his face.
I once mistook a monk for a hedgehog.
Indeed, in certain hamlets, 'tis required to report changes in hair, facial expression, or new hats to maintain social order. Final round, bonus points, and a chance to win this beautifully fermented bag of suspicious potatoes.
They just winked at me.
Law the 8th. It's considered an act of heresy to impersonate a duck within 20 paces of the royal moat.
Real. Too many incidents with spies and unusually convincing drakes.
I remember the trial of Quackers the Deceiver.
Alas, false. But inspired by true panic after a mime once honked too close to the Queen's breakfast window. He now lives as a tree, and thus concludes, guess the law or be ye outlawed. This week's winner is Sir Daniel Morris with 5 correct answers and a suspiciously accurate impersonation of a pickled turnip.
A gift.
I want a recount. That gherkin law was a trap.
Next week, what do leeches, marriage licenses, and duck-sized plagues have in common? Tune in to find out. And thus, dear theatregoers, like a candle in the privy or a monk with stage fright, we flicker out for another week.
Flicker out. Speak for thyself. I've been fully extinguished since sunrise.
That's because you drank thy tea out of a boot again.
It was warm and foot-flavored.
Thank thee, one and all, from nobles in their towers to peasants tuning in via interpretive shadow puppets, for joining us on another unforgettable act of the Dost Linger Fortnite play.
We hath weathered storms, read scrolls of despair, and heard Gonk scream into the void.
The void screamed back and asked for rent.
As you go forth, may your days be merry, your moss be well trimmed, and your geese reasonably docile.
Which reminds me, do not, under any circumstances, approach the eastern field.
The goose uprising?
They have siege towers now, and have tar and feathered the town guard.
We tried to negotiate peace. They slapped the envoy with a wing and honked in Latin.
A sophisticated rebellion.
Remember, though the world may tremble, taxes may rise, and trousers may split in the marketplace, at least we've each other, and vaguely sentient bread.
Is the loaf still moving?
It just winked at me.
Tune in next week, when we attempt to solve the mystery of who put thine eel in the butter churn, and interview a man who claims to have invented wind.
We'll also reveal the scandalous minutes from the Squirrel Council's latest summit.
Spoiler alert, the acorn tariffs are outrageous.
Until then, dear hearts and filthy stockings, keep thy humour sharp, thy turnips honest, and beware any duck that walketh with a purpose. And, dost ye forget, Dost Linger a Fortnite!
Haley, Sir Daniel, are ye both abed? Good. Then no one shall stop me. I shall finally retrieve mine emergency goblet stash, hidden beneath the loose stone behind the chamber pot. Aha! There you are, my pretties. 38? 39? Wait. Who drank from goblet 40? You again! Ah! You'll pay for this, Archibald! That one was pewter. Secondly, the four... Fuck. The four boys!
Bottle water! Fetch me a pail of water!
Now that's not with the times!
Oh, it seems our very own fire department wagon is coming by.
Our horse and buggy.
Horse.
I hope the mayor's okay. Thou cannot keep keep using the hearth as thy experimental smoke chamber. I can't. I'm sorry.
Just like Haley's like in the chimney and just like doing like just smoking pot. Like has a cauldron of weed.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was so close to getting through that too.
The rebels.
Also, I want to say, when is this set? Because
You know, I'm not sure.
the script references several like events that are like several years apart,
I think that's even
several
funnier.
100 years apart.
That's even funnier.
And also, potatoes weren't introduced into Europe, which I assume is where this is set, until like after the like New World was discovered. Like, so this is at least mid 16th century, which was well out of the Dark Ages.
I'm gonna guess
Too
that.
bad.
I'm gonna guess that most people listening don't know that. either.
Gavin's gonna hate
He's
this.
too bad, Gavin.
Elsewhere, okay, I just want to say, Tiddlewick upon Sprout. I love so much.
What was it? Shut up.
Oh, that must be that new motor carriage that the people are all yapping about.
Seems to be quite the fad. It'll never last.
I heard about that on Yik Yak.
Henry Ford. What a man.
Nothing will beat the indomitable spirit of the horse.
I, for one, am a mule. I enjoy the mule.
I quite enjoy the donkey with its cute little yee-haw. Send questions by scroll, Gary a pigeon, or shouting really loud into a barrel and rolling it downhill. Darn it, so close. Also, I really like yelling into a barrel. It's like the message carries. It's so funny.
You'll pay for this, Archibald.
Archibald!
Archibald.
I think that enemy got the point.
Archibald. Archibald.